Well, this is one of the most controversial stories in the entire lineup tonight. According to the reports, DHS has described procurement plans involving electro-shock enforcement devices for the IC officers. The report refers to a device called the G.L.O.V.E, described as a wearable conductive device intended for the law enforcement use. So the important point for our discussion is not to sensationalize the technical term here. The important point is this: immigration enforcement is becoming more visible, more optional and more contested. ICE has two major enforcement components mentioned in the report: Enforcement and Removal Operations or ERO and Homeland Security Investigations or HSI. These agencies deal with immigration enforcement, investigations, workplace related cases and other federal matters. For immigrants and non-citizens, any interaction with immigration authority can be stressful, specifically for people who are not completely comfortable with English, specifically for elderly family members, specifically for people who panic during a sudden encounter. And that is why knowing your legal right, it matters. According to the reports, remaining calm, in fact avoiding any physical confrontation, asking about legal authorities, keeping documentation of lawful status and having access to qualified legal assistance, that matters. Now let's talk about the controversial part. Why do you need an electric glove for an illegal immigrant? Well, maybe you can put them in a detention center. Maybe you can deport them. Maybe that illegal immigrant is not perhaps the illegal immigrant that you are thinking about. Maybe he is an H-1B worker whose visa just expired and he is waiting for a renewal. Maybe that illegal immigrant is a family member who fell out of status and waiting for a B1 or B2 visitor visa or a tourist visa. Well, using an electrical glove to shock the illegal immigrant, it is not something that is in favor of anybody in the United States. And yes, the broader message is worth remembering here. Do not turn an immigration encounter into a confrontation because the measures are going inhumane. Stay calm, do not physically resist, do not guess, and if you need legal advice, speak to a qualified immigration lawyer. Because when enforcement becomes stricter, understanding your rights become more important than ever. A major development that directly affects the debate around birth tourism in the United States. The U.S. Department of State has revoked more than 600 visas issued to foreign nationals as part of a broader crackdown on what Washington calls birth tourism. U.S. Secretary of State Mr. Marco Rubio, he announced the move, saying that the department is taking strict actions against people involved in schemes designed to travel to America specifically to give birth. Now, ladies and gentlemen, birth tourism refers to situations where foreign nationals travel to the US with the intention of giving birth there, with the expectation that the child may obtain the US citizenship by being born in the country. And now, the Trump administration is putting much greater scrutiny on these arrangements. According to the State Department, they have created a special task force to target what is described as these illegal schemes further. The task force is reviewing visa holders, identify people suspected of participating in such arrangement, and going after networks and intermediaries that allegedly help people misuse the US immigration system. And the scale of the action, it is significant. In just 1 month, the task force initiated the revocation of more than 600 visas. That means this is not being treated as an isolated immigration issue anymore. Washington is actively looking at people arranging these trips, the people facilitating them, and the visa holders themselves. Message from the US increasingly clear. A visa is not a guarantee of entry or an invitation to use the US immigration system for purpose that violates US rules. Well, the State Department says it will continue using the mechanism available to target the organizers and intermediaries involved in these arrangements. And this crackdown comes alongside another major immigration-related development, by the way, involving Afghan nationals. The US Citizenship and Immigration Services has suspended the processing of all immigration applications from Afghan nationals. According to the reports, processing will remain suspended while authorities review security protocols and screening procedures. So, two developments are unfolding at the same time. On one side, US is intensifying scrutiny on people accused of using visas for birth tourism. On the other side, it is reviewing immigration applications from Afghan nationals as part of a broader security and screening preview. Big picture, clear. Immigration enforcement in America is becoming more aggressive, more closely monitored, and increasingly focused on how visas are being used. And for anyone planning to travel to the US, message is simple. Do not look at a visa just as a piece of paper. Look at the purpose for which it is used, the rules attached to it, and the consequences of violating those rules.